Hello YouTube, I'm DoctorTactical, and the doctor will see you now. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about a very hot topic. We're going to talk about concealed carry guns. I get a ton of questions on this all the time. Actually, when it comes to concealed carry in general, I get holster questions, I get gun questions, I get legal questions. I get lots of questions. I'm going to talk about the gun, try and stay focused if I can on the guns for today's video. Anyway, it is a really important topic, and I hate the answer I have to give, but the true answer is it depends. It truly does depend, because it depends on the situation, depends on the weather, depends on how you're dressed, depends on the situation you're walking into. All these things matter. And, you know, I hate to say it, but size matters. And it does. You know, it's funny. I was in that's not funny, because I was in a car accident. I accidentally rear-ended somebody. I was talking on the phone, sort of tapped this guy in front of me. He pulled over, I got out of the car, I walked up, and I realized it was a little person. I don't know what the appropriate term is, little person. And he rolled his window down, and I said, "I am so sorry." And he said, "Well, I am not happy." So I said, "Well, which one are you?" If stories like that don't make you want to hit the subscribe button, I don't know what else I got for you. Anyway, back to the gun choices. So we've got large guns, we've got small guns. They have pluses and minuses. Obviously, the larger the gun is, the better it's going to shoot, the better it's going to handle, the more significant ammunition you can put through it, the more ammunition it will hold. The smaller the gun is, the more comfortable it is, the more likely you are to have it on you, the less likely you are to be announcing to people around that you have a firearm on you, as it'll sort of tuck away nicely. There's just a lot of pluses to small also. So, without any further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of walk you through going from smallest to biggest in what I consider to be carryable guns. Actually, the last one's not really a carryable gun. It's just to sort of make a point. But let's start with... Now, there are smaller guns out there. And by the way, each gun I'm going to show you represents really a whole category of guns. Right now, this is a Derringer. Now, Derringers come in all different calibers. This particular Derringer actually comes in a 38 Special, which is really interesting. And, I mean, this is a gun that you can just sort of tuck away, and people aren't going to notice. So let's take a quick look here at the Derringer. Davis Industries Derringer. It is a model 38 because it is a 38 special shooting gun. Here's a 38 special round, just to give you an idea what we're dealing with here. So this is a double barrel, two-shot gun. So let's see. You got your 2 rounds here of 38 Special. Now, let's look at this. I'm not going to load it. I just want to show you something. So here's the barrel. The chamber is part of the barrel. The 38 Special takes up at least half of this barrel. So that does not leave a lot of room for the projectile to gain velocity. And people pick a gun like this, pick this caliber, because 38 Special is a good, strong caliber. But what you're actually doing with a 38 Special in such a short barrel is you're building up the high pressures that the round is known for, but you're not really getting the velocity because it's not being pushed through the barrel for an extended period of time. A lot of the gases are coming out, and a lot of the gases are coming right back at you with this little chunk sitting in your hand. And I got to tell you, this is not a comfortable gun to shoot. You know, people poo-poo the 380, but if you had a 380 in this gun, you could actually get a little velocity out of that barrel compared to the 38 Special. Well, anyway, that's just my soapbox. Wrong one. So 38 Special, 2 rounds, very concealable. This gun is very concealable. I can completely eclipse it with my hand where you can't see it. But I will tell you, this isn't a gun you throw in your pocket and forget it's there. This is a heavy gun. And it has to be because of the pressures that are coming out of this bullet. You need to, it needs to stay together, because I got to tell you, when you shoot this, you really are concerned it's going to blow up in your hand. Another thing about this gun is it has no trigger guard. So important to keep in mind. So if you have any intentions of running with this thing cocked and not locked, by the way, because there's no safety on it. Oh, no, take it back. There is a safety. There's a safety. Nonetheless, I don't think that would be a wise idea. Even though the trigger is a, let's see, 42.7 pound trigger. That's just off of my feel there. It is a very heavy trigger. Nonetheless, if you had this thing sitting cocked in your pocket and the safety, which is just a push safety, by the way, got de-safety-tized, you'd have a real serious problem here. Because you would be able to get enough pressure to pull that trigger, and it would go badly for you. But as far as putting this gun in the boot, keeping the hammer down, throwing it in your pocket, this absolutely is a viable option. It conceals very nicely. It just is a gun that you will know you have, because this thing is heavy. In fact, let's just take a look. When I say it's heavy, I'm not planning on going through all the specs in this video, but I am kind of curious here. All right, 13.8 ounces for this gun. You get 2 rounds. That's unloaded, so 2 rounds. So that wouldn't add a lot of weight to it, but 13.8 ounces. All right. So, Davis Industries, 38 Special Derringer. A decent choice if you need to really conceal well in a situation. So the Derringer is a choice for the appropriate situation. Again, I can't remember the last time I carried this particular gun, but there are times and places where this would be appropriate. All right, next up, Ruger LCP. Now, I should point out, all the guns that are out here have not only been safety checked and cleared, the magazines that are in them have been re-safety checked and then inserted. The reason I did it that way, instead of showing you each and every one, apparently the entertainment value of doing that is nil. So I did check them all, and if you're worried about it, please keep in mind, I am in a gun room by myself, nobody else here. So we should be pretty safe. All right. Ruger LCP. This is the original Ruger LCP. This is not the 2. So this is before they did a lot of the upgrades, but the size is the same and the concept's the same. And it's a really nice gun. This particular one has a laser on it. That's just sort of an add-on. Anyway, let's take a look at the LCP. So let's take a look at the Ruger LCP. Now, this is the original LCP. There's an LCP2, which has some improvements over this. This also has a laser mounted to it, which has pros and cons. But anyway, the gun is small, it is light, it is skinny, and weight-wise, since we went through the trouble of checking the Derringer, with the laser on this, we're looking at 10.4 ounces. So unloaded, with the laser, 10.4 ounces. So you're getting 6 + 1 rounds, and you're coming in underweight on the Derringer, which only has 2. Now it's 6 + 1 rounds of 308. I'm sorry, not 308. Definitely not 308. 380. So 380, again, just in comparison, here is the 38. Sorry, didn't mean to shake the camera there. And there's your 380. So it's much smaller round, much lighter pressures. Therefore, the gun has lighter materials. The springs aren't as tight, and the thickness of the steel and everything for the barrel doesn't have to be as stiff, so, or as thick, I should say. So the weight is significantly less. This gun also, I can completely eclipse, and that's with, well, now you can sort of see the pinky extender, but they have a magazine that doesn't have the pinky extender, so if that's important to you, it's easy to not have that on there. So just in comparison to the Derringer, they're very similar, actually, as far as the area they take up. The Derringer is clearly a smaller gun, has less length, but because of its odd shape, it does sort of take up a footprint that's not all that different from the Ruger LCP. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time on holsters, but I am going to talk about holsters. We'll talk about it with the LCP MAX because it doesn't have a laser on it, and once you have the laser, it's sort of you have to be more specific with the holster. But since I have this out, here is the Viridian holster that comes with the laser, and it's actually, this makes this like a refrigerator. If you have the laser turned on and you put it in here, as far as you know, the magnet in this turns the laser off, and when you draw it, the magnet not being there allows the laser to turn on. So that's kind of nice. Anyway, if you know, it has some downsides, but that's another video. Anyway, the LCP is a really nice carry gun. This is one that you put in your pocket and you just sort of forget about because it is so light and it is so small. Now, the problem with a holster like this is a trained eye can look at your pocket and look at the outline of this and sort of get a feel for what the situation is. So that's a concern, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. But anyway, LCP, really good choice. And like I said, there's an LCP2 that now has some better grip texture, better trigger, better sights. But I still like the LCP one, so it's not better enough that I needed to upgrade. I sort of skipped over it to, well, we'll talk about it in a moment, the LCP MAX. So the LCP is a wonderful choice, and when it comes to going in the pocket, as I said, it just sort of disappears. Very nice choice. Next gun up is the LCP MAX. So this is also a 380, and this is just a nice little gun. I really have to say that most of the time that I would have carried that LCP, now the MAX has sort of taken its place, unless I'm wearing my skinny jeans. If I'm wearing my skinny jeans, all bets are off. And it's tough because everybody's eyes go right to my jeans when I do that. Anyway, let's take a look at the LCP MAX. Okay, now we're looking at the LCP MAX. This is a slightly wider grip all the way around than the LCP. It has a trigger with the little dongle on it for drop safety. It has a nice trigger. It has nice sights. It's got actually a night sight in the front. This is, let's compare, actually before we do that, let's get the weight on this. So unload it again. Now, I mentioned that the grip is wider. It should be pointed out that this holds 10+1 rounds. The magazine holds 10 rounds, and this weighs in at 10.8 ounces. So I think the other was 10.5, so 0.3 ounces more. Now this is unloaded, of course, but you're getting 4 more rounds into this. So let's compare. Again, it's hard to completely compare this to the LCP because of the laser there, but we'll just pretend it's not. As far as the eclipsing, we are starting to come down a little bit more, so you can see a little hint of it coming out of my palm. But again, you can see this is a small enough gun that you certainly can pocket this. The weight can certainly be distributed in a light manner that's not going to really be burdensome to you. And when we look at these two guns really on top of each other, it's not that big of a difference in the length, or height, I should say. Length is very similar when we look at these. You can see the nicer sights here. Width, especially of the grip, and a little bit of the height difference on the grip, that's what makes the difference, makes this a little bit bulkier. So if you're wearing your skinny jeans, you may go with this, but otherwise, for the additional rounds, this is certainly worth the extra 0.3 ounces and the little bit of size. Now, also keep in mind that I'm showing you all of these with flush magazines. There's also a 12-round magazine available for this, and probably other mags as well. But that's the 12 ounces what I'm aware of. Okay, so again, the LCP MAX is shooting the 380. And actually, before I do that, I showed you the Viridian holster. This is the Ruger holster that comes with. Again, same situation. You can, from a printing standpoint, in a pocket, this could be identified to somebody who's knowledgeable and looking for something. So, other holsters are certainly available. Here are two that are nice, and there's a lot of other ones out there. This is a holster by J&J, specifically for the Ruger. It will fit the LCP and the LCP MAX. This portion of the holster is basically just a piece of leather, but thick piece of leather, so it mimics sort of a wallet from that side if you put it to the outside of the pocket. So you holster. So against your leg, this is the part that's inside, but to the part towards the pocket, towards the outside of the pocket, you've got this. And that really obliterates the outline of the gun. And when you go to draw, you just simply put your, I'm sorry, I don't mean to shake the camera here. You put your hand right in there, right between it, and you just simply draw. And this is a Garrison grip holster, same concept, little less cumbersome. It's got some sticky stuff, some rubber stuff here to help it stay in the pocket when you draw. But it's the same basic concept. You're going to come inside of it when you draw and pull. But this also helps. This sort of is the shape of most pockets, and it really does hide or mask the outline of the gun. Not the topic today, but we are talking conceal, so that is important. And they make those for most guns that are pocket carry. All right, so that is your LCP MAX. And I know I said it, a moment ago, but I just want to reinforce these sights are really nice that they put on it. And and the trigger's a lot nicer. And the thicker grip actually is much more manageable. And if you use the 12-round magazine, the pinky goes on, and it still really tucks away very nicely. All right, next up, we got here the LCR, Ruger LCR, the revolver. This is the LCR X. X because it has a hammer. I'm sure we'll look at that in more detail in just a moment. This is a reliable, great gun for all the reasons I'm about to tell you. So I did a video previously on this little trigger blocker. And basically the concept of using this as a holster. In other words, putting this behind the trigger where it's sort of wedged into place. And then you can't, I did a whole video where I really tried to pull that as hard as I could. And I could not make the gun fire with it. It's in there fairly stably, but enough that if you reached in your pocket, you could push it out and then start shooting. The one advantage that the revolver and the Derringer have over the other guns is if you have them in a pocket, say like a trench coat or something like that, you can fire this multiple times from inside the pocket through the clothing. This you could get your 2 shots off. You cannot do that with any of the other guns I've shown that are semi-automatics because the action needs to, slide, needs to reciprocate, and the clothing would interfere with that. So anyway, just an interesting little point there. And it's also interesting to think of that as a holster. So this you're getting 6 rounds total. No, I'm sorry. You don't get one in the pipe for this. This one you get 5 rounds total for this particular revolver. But again, this is representing all snubbies, and some of them are 6-rounders. So, and depending on what ammo you're going with, if you go with a smaller ammo, you can get even more in the cylinder. Anyway, really nice choice. One, the pluses, as I mentioned, you can shoot it through clothing if you desire. Also, if you are in an up close and personal situation, you jam up into somebody or they jam themselves into you, this will not be knocked out of battery. You can shoot all 5 rounds, even with pressure on the front end of that gun. So this is definitely a fighting gun. And by fighting gun, I also mean you can really clock somebody with this thing. This thing does have some polymer on it, though. But when you start getting into some of the revolvers, they've got a lot more metal. So we are looking at, with the LCR, 13.6 ounces. So this is shooting a 38 special, and it's 13.6 ounces. And the Derringer is 13.8 ounces. So the Derringer, which is shooting 2 rounds of 38 special, is 13.8. And the Ruger LCR, which is shooting 5 rounds, is 13.6. And that is largely in part because they did use polymer around the periphery and just kept metal where they absolutely needed it to deal with the pressures of the round. And that's the LCR. I'm a big fan of the LCR. I find I love the comfort. I love the comfort on the grip. I don't know that this is a hoe grip. I think it is. But one of the nice things also I should point out, I didn't on the both on the Derringer and on the LCR, you have a lot of flexibility with the grip because you're not housing rounds in here. Now there is a mainspring in here, but that hammer spring, that's different. But you can do a lot more with the grips because they're really just there to support your shooting more so than putting 15 rounds in. So, and this is a very comfortable grip, and you can change the angle of the grip is a little more flexible as well. Anyway, that's the LCR, Ruger LCR in 38 special. Sig P365. Everybody calls this a game changer, and for good reason. This changed everything because up until Sig did this, a gun this size usually held 7, maybe 7 rounds. They usually held 7 rounds. And now these things are holding 10 rounds, and everybody's changed the game because they've all jumped in, but Sig did it first. They really plowed the way for everyone. And you've got a small gun that's got a decent capacity and a decent trigger, and it feels a little bit more like a real gun. Not that the other ones aren't, but this you're more in the fight with something like this. Now we're talking about the Sig P365. There's a whole slew of versions of this, but this is the it's the Gen 2, after they fixed some of the problems with the original, but this is the first 365 that Sig came out with. It's just with some improvements. So this is a 10-round magazine, and this shoots a 9mm. So just to put it in perspective, here is our 380. Here is our 9mm that we're all very familiar with. And of course, here is our 38 special. So there's not that big of a difference when you really look at the 380 and the 9mm, but we know ballistically there is, because there's 647 videos right now out just on that topic. Anyway, while the 380 is a good round, the 9mm clearly is, since that's most police agencies and military seem to be subscribing more to the 9mm. it gets more love. So a gun that's going to shoot a 9mm is going to have to be a more substantial gun than a gun that shoots a 380, and that's because the pressures from this 9mm are significantly higher than they are from the 380. So in order for the gun to be able to do follow-up shots without blowing up in your hand, it needs to have some girth to it. So let's see what we got here. Okay, 1 pound, 2.5 ounces. So this is a fairly heavy gun. And as for palming it, actually the palming, yeah, you can see what's coming out. Now this has a 10-round magazine, but ever since they came out with the X macro version of this, there is a 17-round magazine, and that 17-round magazine has filler, or it has different bases, and you can, depending on which model you have, it has a base that will fill the space, so you don't just have the magazine just hanging out of the base of the gun. But anyway, for concealed purposes, 10 rounds is perfect. Now, this is a pocketable gun. Just out of curiosity, you could, now you got a little bit of a kick up here, but that does work even in the holster there for the Ruger, the LCP, and the LCP MAX. The important thing with these that does not fit in this one though. Oh well, I was just curious. The important thing with a holster is that it's going to protect the trigger. It's going to stay on firmly enough that the trigger's not going to get exposed, especially in your pocket. That's real important. So anyway, this is a great gun. You got 10 rounds of ammo. You can carry it in your pocket, but it is heavy and it's bulkier than the other guns that we've looked at. And just in comparison to the LCP MAX, actually, height-wise, it's really not all that different. Length-wise, it's definitely a little bit longer. Now, from a pocket carry standpoint, that does matter. From a IWB or outside the waistband or appendix, it's not such a big, which is still IWB. It's not as critical. This is the part that really matters, the grip. But I will say that the weight makes a difference. So when you're carrying this, you know you're carrying it. So you have more gun to shoot, but you have more gun you're carrying. But this is a very nice choice. This is a gun that I prefer to carry IWB. I sort of step away from pocket carrying when I get to this gun. All right, next up, Glock 19/23. So you've got here a 15-round mag plus one in the chamber with the flush fit. Good size gun. Let's take a look at it. Glock 23, also Glock 19. These guns have the exact same bodies, same frames. They're the barrel is really the primary difference. The Glock 23 shoots 40 Smith & Wesson. The Glock 19 shoots 9mm. The Glock 19 holds 15 rounds with the flush mag, and the Glock 23 holds, I think, 13 rounds. I'll have to check that. It's less. I know it's less. Anyway, when we start getting into this size gun, and the nice thing with the 23, by the way, is that you can change the barrel. So it's just 40 Smith & Wesson, or it's a 9mm based on what you want to use. I have both, 19s and 23s. And sometimes if I do competitions, or I have somebody who needs to borrow a gun for a competition and it's a 9mm, we'll just change out the barrel in the 23. It takes a second. Easy to do. Anyway, when we start getting into a gun this size, you 100% can conceal this. This is an easy to conceal gun for me if I'm not tucking in. If I'm tucking in, this becomes a lot more challenging. Even if I'm using something like a smart carry or one of those, in the pants type things, it's still hard to really conceal this gun. But if I'm not tucked in, I can conceal this all day nicely, and it actually isn't terribly uncomfortable. It is, so this is sort of representing compact guns as a whole right now. But you can see with this, you've got a real gun. This is a real fighting gun. The other ones are guns to get you out of trouble. And really, that's how you should be looking at all these guns as a non-law enforcement individual. You're just trying to get yourself out of trouble, and all of them will do the job. This gun will do the job and then some, as far as just really making sure that you're covered. This is, a very... You've got 15 rounds of 9mm ammo in a gun that has a decent barrel length and a decent distance between the sights, so you can shoot accurately. You can get a decent velocity. It's just this is a nice choice for a gun, but not always when it comes to concealing, though. So one more thing on the Glock, actually two more things. This is not a pocket carry gun. This is a terrible pocket carry gun. Also, let's just take a quick look at the weight on this while I'm thinking about it. So this is 1 pound, 8.2 ounces. So not terrible, and because of the size of it, it actually distributes the weight pretty nicely, having this in a holster. Again, this is not a pocket gun. It's too big, it's too heavy, and it's just not really an appropriate choice, unless you've got ridiculous pockets. So, but great choice for a gun, not the best choice for concealed carry, maybe, depending on how you're dressed, and what your situation is. So this is a gun that I would be very comfortable carrying if I weren't trying super hard to conceal. This is a gun I'd feel very comfortable in most situations. Next up, just for fun, the P226. This is a full-size gun. This thing's a beast, but a great gun. You can shoot your way out of a situation. You can beat somebody over the head with this thing, get yourself out of a situation. This gun is very nice. Probably not my go-to when it comes to concealed carry, though. But anyway, let's take a look. Sig P226 ZEV. You guys have seen it a couple times. Take a look up here. You'll see I've had some videos on this. I bring this gun out whenever I can because I love it. It just feels so good. But you know where it doesn't feel good? When you're carrying it inside the waistband. This little mother right here, this little spike, the beaver tail, hurts really badly. After a couple hours, you will learn to not like this gun so much. And it's a shame because it's such a great gun. But you know what? It just is not what it's made for. This gun is designed for battle. This is a fighting gun. This is a great home defense gun. This is not a good concealed carry gun. Outside the waistband, probably a great gun for that, just to have with you. But it's not. This is not my choice for carrying. Definitely not a pocket gun. Let's see what the weight is on it. I'm curious now. This is a 9mm, holds 15 plus 1. This is 2 pounds, 2.3 ounces. So that's pretty serious. So this will be representing the full-size guns in today's talk. Okay, so that is the gamut, sort of going from the micros all the way to the beyond macros, to the full size, if you will. And as I said at the beginning, it really depends. It depends on what you're looking at, what you're trying to, what your situation is, what your threat level is. If you're going into a situation where you think the threat level is really high, first and foremost, you should reconsider going into that threat level. That's one of the perks of being a concealed carry permit carrier, is that you are not law enforcement. You do not have to run towards the battle. In fact, you are pretty much required to run away from the battle. So if you think you're going into a situation where you need the Navy SEALs P226, you may want to reconsider why you're going there, what the upside to that is. Anyway, depending on how you're dressed, the situation you're going into, your comfort level, what handles best to you. Now, we're keep in mind also when I talk about what handles best for you, if you are a frailer person, if you're not as strong and you're looking at those little guns, keep in mind little guns kick more than big guns. It's not easier to shoot a little gun, especially depending on what the what ammunition you're using in it. I will tell you right now, this is a mother to shoot. This is really uncomfortable. It really kicks. It really hurts, and it's the smallest gun I just showed you. So this is a dream to shoot. And whether you're shooting this in 9mm or you're shooting it in 40 Smith & Wesson, this is a big, heavy steel frame, strong gun that's going to handle the kick nicely. It's going to, by weight of this, it's going to pull it back down. So don't fool yourself into thinking because of your stature or strength level that you'd be better off with something smaller. That's not necessarily the case. So these are all things to consider. I assume we're going to have lots of comments. I look forward to seeing them. I want to see what you carry and why, and what your thought processes and recommendations are for our fellow watchers. Anyway, please like, subscribe, and share. And I will see you next time. I'm Dr. Tactical. Dr. Tactical, out.